So, let's start with talking about this global pandemic. It's something that most of the world is concerned about, and most experts tell us we will face more pandemics in the future. How do you think we can better prepare for the next pandemic, but in a way that doesn't give government unprecedented control and power over our lives?
Well, we know how to prepare for it. In fact, the advice was given in 2003 after the SARS epidemic was contained. Scientists warned right away there's going to be more, probably worse, and here's how to prepare for it. They're giving exactly the same warnings today, but more severely, because the threat of a new pandemic is even more severe now than it was in 2003. What you have to do is investigate coronaviruses. We know where they are, mostly in China, deep in caves, other places too. Explore them, find out, learn what we can about them, set the stage for developing vaccines quickly and countermeasures quickly, put in place pandemic control measures. All of that can be done. There are barriers, same barriers as in 2003. Three barriers. First one was called capitalism. Who's going to undertake the efforts? Should be the drug companies. They have huge resources, profits coming out of their ears. The so-called trade agreements have granted them lavish monopoly pricing rights, huge laboratories, all the facilities. But they can't do it because they're governed by the logic of capitalism, which is you don't waste money on something that might save a catastrophe 10 years from now. You spend your resources on what you can make profit on tomorrow. And besides, why should they spend money on vaccines, which people use once? Why not on drugs, which people use every day? So the entire capitalist logic tells them you're out of it. Okay, so they're out. There's another possibility, the government. Government has endless resources, wonderful laboratories, could pick up the ball and run with it. But there's another problem. It's called neoliberalism. Go back to Ronald Reagan's inauguration address. Government is the problem, not the solution. The solution is to hand all decisions over to unaccountable private power. Government has a flaw. It's influenced by people. We don't want that. So government is the problem. So put everything in the hands of private power. They'll take care of things. Yeah, we've had 40 years to see how they take care of things, as if it was in any doubt in the first place. Total disaster for most of the population, of course, worldwide. Now, that's the same thing. Those who created the crisis want to keep it that way and to make sure that it's even harsher than before. In fact, they're doing pretty well from the pandemic. Take a look at the US economy. Stock market is breaking records. Poverty and unemployment are breaking records. They're dissociated. The people who run the society and the economy are doing fine. Treasury's pouring out funds. Most of them go to them, keeps the stock market high. Who cares if the economy collapses and is wrecked? That's what we want. We're going to make sure that that remains. So that's two problems: capitalism, neoliberalism. There's a third problem: malevolence of leaders, not everywhere. So, for example, when President Obama took office in January 2009, first action was to call a meeting of the Presidential Science Advisory Council, ask them to develop a pandemic response program, which they did and which he implemented. It stayed in place. American scientists were working with Chinese scientists, Chinese colleagues, to identify coronaviruses deep in caves, dangerous work, to study them, to find out what the threats are. It wasn't perfect. They didn't undertake the moves that should have been taken, but were blocked by the neoliberal framework and capitalist logic. But they did something. So the US was more or less prepared. Then came January 2017. Donald Trump came into office. First days in office, dismantled the pandemic response program totally. Started canceling the programs in which American scientists worked in China. Started defunding the Center for Disease Control. Defunding. Something he continued to do every year of his presidency, even in February 2020, with the pandemic raging. New budget, defund the Center for Disease Control and all other health-related parts of government. They don't contribute to profit for his masters, the sectors of the corporate sector that he works for. They just save the population, so dismantle them. Then came a series of outrageous actions. There's no time to run through them, but just to illustrate. Last March, the United States was comparable to Europe in number of cases and number of deaths. If you look at the curve since then, Europe has gone way down, even Italy, which had a pandemic, way down. US, the curve has risen. It's worse than it was before. That's due to malevolence in the White House. Okay, so that's the third problem. Capitalist logic, the neoliberal assault on the world, and malevolent individuals, of whom you have one right where you are.